be a pretty pitiful and lonely human being, okay? And that was my wake-up call. I wish that I could share my story with you guys without sharing my faith, but it's really hard to do. Okay, it's extremely hard to do. Whenever I visit many public schools or some public forums, people say, "Hey, Jason, we really want to hear about your story, exactly why you decided to leave an NFL career and choose a lifestyle that's much more humbling, that involves farming, a dirty job, a dirty lifestyle." And it's really hard to do so without sharing my faith. So, here it goes. In that humility, I did something really crazy, okay? Now, I know it doesn't look like, a big guy like me, all of these weightlifting records from my alma mater at Carolina. I got down on my knees, and I shared with God, I said, whatever you want me to do, I will do it, okay? Whether that means me leaving football, leaving behind fame and fortune, whatever you want me to do, for me to get back in good standing, and also for me to get my family back in good standing, I will do it. Now, that's a question that you better be very, very careful of when you get the answer, all right? Very careful. Because I had no idea that the answer coming back to me was going to be farming. I thought that post-football, I was going to be carrying around a briefcase. I was going to have, a nice clean job, sitting in the office building. No. I was going to be out there on the front lines. Now, it came about two ways. God shared with me that there was going to be a famine in the land. And this was back in 2010, 2011. And I'm looking all around me, and I'm like, how is there going to be a famine? Like, this is America. There's food everywhere, right? He said there's going to be a famine, and you need to start preparing. Now, still selfishly, I said, okay, well, thank you for giving me, that revelation, God, because now I'm going to start farming for myself and for my family. And he said, no, Jason, no. I've blessed you not so that you can hoard those blessings and keep them to yourselves, but that you can be a blessing to other people. He said that it's not about you, it's about community. Everybody coming together. And honestly, I had no idea what that looked like. But I knew that it started with my heart. I knew that it started with me literally changing my mind about everything and how I perceived my lifestyle. Because I lived a very selfish lifestyle. It was all about me. And now, I'm looking at my lifestyle and saying that, you know what? It's relationship-based first. It's community-based first. It's about working together to uplift one another. So when it came time to actually find farmland in North Carolina, my wife and I were saying, okay, we're going to do this thing, and what exactly are we going to call our farm? And this is when we took another leap of faith. We said we're going to call our farm First Fruits Farm. Because whatever is grown, the first fruits of every harvest is going to be given away. Before any market is filled, before there's any thought of profit margins, or any budgets or deadlines, no. The first fruits will be given away. Now, people ask me, they say, well, hold on a second. You're giving all your produce away first? You're not seeking to fulfill markets first? And we're saying, yes, we're a donation first farm. But yet it's still a business. Okay? Well, thank you very much. We're a donation first farm, but yet it's still a business. Something in which most people, when they look at businesses, anyone who's gone to business school, they always talk about the bottom line. That's profit. If we're going to have this thing work, guys, we have to switch around our thinking. If we're not being led with our hearts, then it's going to fail. There's so much cutthroat and so much immorality in the business world today that if you're truly serious about starting gardening and starting farming and doing it the right way, then we have to do it with our hearts first. So, in 2013, our first crop was done simply by the efforts of my family. And that's because we said we're not going to have any employees. We're actually going to test this and actually test the community. Because I was led, and God showed me, Jason, plant the field first. And I said, hold on a second. How can I plant the field when, what resources do we have? But he said, I want you to step out on faith. So, as soon as we started to plant the field, and we decided on sweet potatoes. North Carolina is the #1 grower in sweet potatoes in the United States. We chose sweet potatoes because they're easily to cultivate, they're nutrient dense, they have a very long shelf life, low glycemic, meaning that it's healthy for everyone. Even someone that might have diabetic issues. And the shelf life, they can last for 8 to 9 months when they're properly cured. And we planted 5 acres of sweet potatoes. And with the help of a local farmer, I asked him, I said, well, I really don't know much about growing sweet potatoes. And he said, well, I really don't know that much either, but I have friends right in the county over. They're willing to help. And when they came back, they planted the sweet potatoes, he came back with a bill of $5,000. And I said, hold on a second. I said, hold on a second now. You know, you didn't tell me exactly how much the sweet potato slips were going to cost, but when he found out that we were going to donate this entire crop, he said that those farmers donated all of the sweet potato slips. Wow. And that just touched my heart. When I asked my farmer exactly how much he was going to charge for planting that crop of sweet potatoes for me, he said, Jason, I haven't seen someone with a heart like yours doing what you do. And you know what? I'm going to help you out any way that I possibly can. So now we have 5 acres of sweet potatoes, guys. That's going to produce over 100,000 pounds. We still don't have any employees. And I'm looking at my wife, and I'm looking at my family, and I'm saying, how are we going to get all these sweet potatoes out of the field? Over 100,000 pounds. And every problem that we're faced with, there's a solution that comes from a phone call or right around the corner. Immediately, we received a phone call from the Society of St. Andrew, which is a network of gleaners. They said, Jason, we don't know exactly what you're doing on the farm, but we hear that you're trying to grow food and give back. Well, guess what? We have people that are willing to come out there and help you glean those sweet potatoes. Well, I said, well, that sounds good, but I'm not looking for gleaners. I'm looking for harvesters. And she said, well, what do you mean? Because gleaners, they go out and they pick up, just like Ruth in the Bible, they pick up the sweet potatoes that are left over out there in the field, the slim pickings. I said, yes, that sounds really good, but I'm looking for harvesters. Because when we turn over the sweet potato field, all of the sweet potatoes are going to be harvested. And all of the sweet potatoes are going to be donated. And you know what she told me? She said, well, why are you doing that? No one's ever done that before. Out of the hundreds of farmers that we've worked with, there hasn't been a single farmer that's ever done that before. I have neighbors who are farmers that farm thousands upon thousands of acres. How easy would it be for them to set aside 1 or 2 acres and just plant that field and not even touch it, but just say, hey, here's a church over here that I know that they can go out and harvest that field. I'm going to donate 2 acres to that church, or to this food bank, or to this food pantry. No one does that. So when people start to learn a little bit about what we were doing, that's when everyone started flowing in. I received so much criticism from people that say, well, why did you quit your job in the NFL, Jason? Like, don't you know that you could have continued making millions of dollars and taken that money and then purchased food and given it to these food banks and given it to the needy? But now here's the thing. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. God told me that He wanted me out there leading the revolution. He told me that He wanted me to be out there on the front lines. And you know what? It's kind of natural for me because I'm an offensive lineman. I'm a big guy. I'm on the front lines. I usually receive zero credibility for all of the work that I've done. Zero credibility. And yet, I'm out there in the trenches. Is my name in the newspaper? No. Do I receive, any pats on the back or any praise? No. Just get out there and do your job, all right? And literally, that's what we're doing right now. And that's where the biggest help is needed, at the actual farm field. It wasn't until I got to North Carolina until I started looking around and seeing exactly how big the problem really was. Terms such as food deserts and food insecurity, I had never heard those things before. I grew up in a rural part where there was farming all around us. Farmers farming hundreds, some of them farming thousands of acres. So how can there be farms and farmland all around us, but yet we'd be right in the middle of a food desert? You know why? Because there's so many commodity crops, so many crops that are being grown that you cannot take directly from the field and prepare it that evening and put it on your plate. Soybeans, you can't do it. Winter wheat, you can't do it. That industrial corn that they use for silage and ethanol fuel, you can't do that with that either, okay? Tobacco, which is heavily grown in North Carolina, let me see you take some of those leafy greens and put some ranch dressing on it and try and eat that down, okay? That's not a tasty salad, guys. They grow cotton, peanuts, you name it. Thousands upon thousands of acres, growing right in people's backyards, but yet people are still malnourished. So I knew it wasn't a farming issue. I knew it wasn't an agricultural issue. It's a priority issue. Where exactly are we putting our priorities? So now, I also don't want to sound hypocritical, guys, because I know that I've benefited so much from my sports background, okay? But yet, I see so many of the talents and the potential and the efforts from our youth being pulled in the direction of sports, okay? Now, here's a theory that I have. Haven't tested it out yet, but I will in the next couple of years. Take a football team, 53-man roster. We were just talking about it in the vehicle ride over here. How now they have these young kids, they're working year-round on the sports field, right? And it sounds good because I know that everybody's saying, well, hey, that's popular, and one day I hope that my son or daughter might earn a scholarship and possibly play for one of these universities, or maybe make it to the big time. And guess what? You have better chances of being struck by lightning or winning the lottery, okay? Those are just the cold hard facts. And what I'm seeing is, I'm seeing all of these youth using all of these resources, okay? And they're burning all of these calories. All of these calories every single day, practicing and playing these games. And at the end of it, they have nothing to show for it. Nothing. Zero. Now, something that I've done just earlier this year, some young men from the inner city that I grew up in, Henderson, North Carolina, they don't care nothing about farming. They don't care not much about school either. All they care about is sports. You ask them, They're 10, 11, 12 years old. What are you going to do, young man? Well, you know, I want to play basketball and I'm going to make it to the NBA. You're not even on the basketball team right now. You're not even on a football team. But you know what? You can take the kid that every teacher has written off, the kid that every parent or teacher says that they have behavioral issues, the kid that's labeled as lazy, okay? I don't want to do no work. I'm tired. And guess what? Take them right out back, put a basketball in their hands. They're jumping, hanging from the rim, trying their best to look like Kobe, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. And guess what? They're working hard, extremely hard, burning hundreds upon hundreds of calories. And at the end of those games, you know what they say? Hey man, good game. Good game. And that's it. And they don't have anything to show for it afterwards. How awesome would it be to take that child and put them in a garden and give them something to do? My theory is if I took a 53-man roster, the same amount of time that any team would have those kids lifting weights, watching film out there on a football field, I could have them in a farm field. Give me 50 acres and 50 young men, and I can produce over 1 million pounds of food. Over 1 million pounds of food. Easily. And guess what? Not only that, those young men, afterwards, they would have something to show for it. They would be able to take groceries home to their families and put food on their tables. You would also have enough food left over for donation. Donation first. You would also have enough food to supply local markets and farmers markets. Because we're going to test this out this next year. Maybe not with 50 young men, but we're going to start out with 5 to 10. And we're going to start a summer program. And at the end of them finishing the summer program, the proceeds are going to go towards their school supplies and also a scholarship fund. All of their calories of what they're doing, it's not going to be burnt anymore. All of you know the statistics, the average age of the farmer being 59 years old, close to 60. I have young men my age in their 20s and their 30s. Their own parents are generational farmers. They have farmed for over 100 years. They've amassed hundreds of acres. They have over $1 million in tractors and farm equipment. And you know what the children say? I don't want to farm anymore. Farming's not for me. The same thing that happened with many black families as well. My parents both grew up on farms. The first chance they got out of Dodge. But you know what my father told me? He said that when I grew up, we didn't want for anything. We lived a very rich lifestyle. It may have looked like we were poor, but no. Really, everybody else was poor because we were fed every single night. He said there was very little that they had to leave their farm for. Very little. So my question to my dad was, Dad, why'd you leave the farm? Why? Why does the grass look so much greener on the other side? And that's truly what I'm learning right now, guys, is that the podium that I have through the NFL and through sports is to touch the younger generation. Okay? It's to touch them. Because one thing that I'm seeing, this is the only young man that I see in the room right here. The only young man. How old are you, sir? 21. You're young enough. All right? You're right there. You're young enough. The only young man that I see in the room. I thank every single one of you else that came here, but guess what? You should have snatched up a nephew, a niece, a son or a daughter. They should be in this room right now. because they need to hear this. They need to hear this right now. Because the life skills is that we can't afford to lose farming. We can't afford to lose gardening. That simple life skill. When we moved back to the farm, when we moved back to our farm, I said, whoa, like, I'm literally poor in skills. I used all of my time developing all of these skills, being an awesome athlete and an awesome football player, but I found out that I was literally poor when it came to just good old-fashioned life skills. Daggone. Like, I had to learn simple plumbing, electrical, carpentry work. Yeah, because on a farm, you literally have to be a jack of all trades. I called an electrician out to our farm. It was something electrical. I said, well, I can't figure out what's going on, but now I'm always in learning mode. So I stood right directly behind him while he was fixing it. Pulled off the electrical panel, took his little probes, touched two knobs. He said, oh yeah, that's the fault right there. Connecting them back together. And I said, that's it? He said, that's it. Here's your bill for $150. And I said, that'll be the last time. The last time. Every single one of our youth, they need to know electrical, plumbing, carpentry. Every youth needs to know and learn how to sow a seed. It's fundamental for life. As many cars are out here, everyone needs to know how to change their own oil, whether you're a man or a woman. You need to know those simple things. Everyone needs to know those things. And I had to go back and learn all of those things. You know how I started learning? Watching videos on YouTube. I know there's a lot of junk out there. There's a lot of great stuff as well. I literally sit in my bed at night. My wife, she's like, turn that thing on. And I'm just sitting there, just watching videos on my phone. I'm like, wow, that's all it is? That's all you have to do? Yes. Some of these things are extremely simple, but our youth are losing a lot of these life skills. When it comes to farming, yeah, you better learn preservation methods as well. I had to learn how to can. Right? That's fun. That's fun. Went out, brought myself a pressure canner. Didn't put fill the water line up to the right point. I was making myself some good old-fashioned salt and pepper pickles, guys. And guess what? When I opened up the pot, all my jars had shattered. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? But guess what? That's something that's going to help preserve your food throughout the winter time. That's fundamental. So if we want to have those things, we have to learn canning. We have to learn preservation. If you're going to introduce farming, the cooking and the culinary arts, it has to complement it. Because